last year's Family Day event, which was incredible. So thank you so much, Veronica, for having me. I am so excited to be here today for this conversation, reimagining masculinity and empowering our sisters. Um, we have an incredible panel today of some people that I hold in very high regard. And without further delay, I would like to introduce them. Um, First, I want to introduce Michaela Barnett. Michaela was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. She is often described as a trendsetter, fashion icon, lover of hip hop, and financial guru. She is known on social media as Young Oprah. Michaela, from a very early age, was determined to be successful and has done so. She has held multiple positions as a marketing analyst at American Express and as a client solutions manager at Facebook. And the reason why we're all here today, along with her mother, Veronica, founded She Thing NYC in February of 2019. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Michaela Barnett.
Everyone.
Hello. Hi,
Hello,
Michaela.
welcome.
Welcome.
Next, I would like to introduce Veronica Loomis. Really, in so many ways, she's the reason why we are all here today. Veronica was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. She spent her formative years in no other place than Bedford-Stuyvesant, Bed-Stuy, what up, where she had the opportunity to engage with community and develop her gifts and talents. And there are many of both. Veronica graduated from York College with a bachelor's degree in community health education, and she and her daughter Michaela both founded She Thing back in 2019, where she currently serves as the executive director. So without further ado, please welcome Veronica Loomis.
Thank you, Durell.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing us all together today. And last but certainly not least, it is my honor to introduce to you Dr. Christopher Emdin. Dr. Christopher Emdin is an associate professor in the Department of Mathematics, Science, and Technology at Teachers College, Columbia, where he also serves as the Director of Science Education and the Associate Director of the Institute for Urban and Minority Education. Along with that, Dr. Emdin is also the founder of Hip Hop Ed, and the author of For White Folks Who Teach in the Hood and the Rest of Y'all Too, and the recently released Ratchetdemic. Go get your copy. I most certainly have mine. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, please join me in welcoming Christopher Emdin.
Hey everyone, it's a pleasure to be here with y'all today.
I am I am zooming in today. Before we get started in the conversation piece of it, I really want to honor the land in which I am currently occupying. I am zooming in today from the occupied land of the Lenape people, also known as Midtown Manhattan. And I think, especially in this conversation where we're looking at reimagining and empowering, thinking about the spaces that were previously occupied and what will we do once those people want those lands back. Who was invited to be here in this space. And so I think that really kind of helps to center to our conversation and where we're coming in to this from today. And so for this very first question, I actually want to take it to Michaela. So She Thing NYC is all about empowerment of women, particularly Black women. What does it mean for what does it mean to build accomplices or co-conspirators with Black men in this work?
Yeah, I think, and that's an excellent question. I think, especially in meditating on this question, I thought about a lot of the things that we think about as an organization. So every time we're talking about a woman's issue, it's never just a woman's issue. We never just approach it as something that only women face or something that are like it's not exclusive to women. There's some sort of like community aspect within every single issue that we interface. But I think in terms of building an accomplice with Black men, I think it's powerful. I think it's necessary. I think that's the part of community to have like the backbone of, for men to support women and for women to support men. I think that it's definitely a necessary conversation. And, like I said, in everything that we approach treating with, it's not just a woman's issue. It's not just something that we think about with women. That's why we always like to bring men into the conversation, because ultimately, if we're trying to march toward a common goal, we need everyone's help. It takes, a village. So I definitely think that Black men, in collaboration with Black women, that's where we get the strongest power to do as much as we can do.
Ooh. And Veronica, I'm curious if you would like to add anything to that. Kind of taking us back to February 2019, the inception of the organization, thinking about the mission of She Think NYC, and then the intersectionality between the organization and society, and how Black men are incorporated into, the struggle. Tell us a little bit about the mission of She Think NYC and how we are, from 2019 to 2021, how things are sort of synchronizing.
So our initial mission was to empower women and girls. I'm sorry, I'm getting an echo. I'm not sure if you can hear on your end. But the initial mission was to empower women and girls who've encountered traumatic experiences. And we realized last year, we started a new campaign called It's a We Thing, realizing that we need our brothers in order to uplift ourselves. And we had a deep conversation last summer around this time, and we invited brothers and we asked them, what can we do to empower you? What can we do to uplift you? So our mission going forward is, it's a we thing. It's mainly a she thing, but we have to do this together. We have to move forward together.
I love that. I love that. It's a we thing.
Yeah, let me say something real quick. So I think what I want to happen is we have other than us, we have 10 folks in the room other than Rose who are kind of on this panel. And I already just hearing what Michaela has shared and what Veronica has shared, I'm gonna ask everybody in this room right now to just, as you're listening, get on your text and your IG and tell these people that bars about to be dropped, so that folks can engage in the dialogue and benefit for the engagement. Like, what I always find is whenever suckers get together to talk about sucker shit, excuse my language, you got a whole crowd engaged in regurgitating the same mechanistic language and dialogues about things that do not collectively elevate us. And whenever folks get together to do real work, it'd be powerful and it moves and shakes you up. But they be 10 folks in the room. And I think we have to get to the point where we collectively engage in the same, dare I say, marketing and publicity avenues as those who engage in conversations that are things to the detriment of our community when we're talking about words that elevate. I think it's radical in this moment for Veronica to say, this is She Thing. This is about addressing folks who've been harmed and hurt to have space to articulate their voice. But the way we approach that work is in an embracing way to include brothers in the conversation and say, look, how have you been hurt? Because I know your hurt is what allows you or forces you or moves you or motivates you to engage in practices that run counter to our collective well-being and allows you to assault sisters. It's not letting brothers off the hook, but it's to say, even in my identification of your complicity in ensuring that I am broken, I will love you up to the best version of yourself so we can all collectively be whole. How radical and revolutionary is that? You know what I mean? Like, we're in this space where it's all about collectively assaulting each other. And in the midst of identifying the goals of this org, it's through love, like, right? That critique through love, reprimand through love. And in the critique and reprimand is a collective upliftment. That's radical. That's beautiful. And folks need to be a part of that conversation. So yeah, I just want to begin there.
Dr. E, let's keep going down that path. Among being an expert in many things, from teaching and learning to child development, you are also a connoisseur of hip hop.
Yeah.
And we know the challenging relationship that hip hop has had specifically with Black women. You know, I mean, that's not even to get into, you know, what's happening right now with like Little Nas X, Industry Baby, the Baby, and all that. Maybe we come back to that at the end, right? Start looking at intersectional justice, but specifically looking at hip hop music and the complicated history it's had with Black women.
Yeah.
How can hip hop be used as a tool to help sort of as a restorative tool in this process of helping to bridge this gap that is there?
By having the first thing I would say is that, thank you for that question, by the way. And yo, Dr. Cooper's so articulate and so, like, you know, not in a way like, look how articulate he is, but you know, like he's just so smooth too, like the way he get down. You know what I mean? I respect that so much. I ain't that smooth. One day when I grow up, I'll get that smooth. You know, the first thing I'd say is the reason why hip hop has continued to replicate the same problematic sort of like pillars of the culture or structures in the culture is because by the time the young folks grow up enough to be adults to recognize the folly in what they do, they've been aged out of the culture. So now what oftentimes happens is, like, you know, youth in America, youth across the world, but youth in America where hip hop is constructed in particular, right? They are targeted by the larger superstructure to magnify what Americana offsets, right? So what hip hop has always done is, America, y'all misogynistic, I'm be misogynistic times 50. Y'all are capitalistic, I'm be capitalistic times 100. And so what hip hop has always done, the youth, is they've taken what America has shown, they magnify it back, they ratchet it up, pun intended, and then they project it on the community. So when you see misogyny in hip hop, it's really a reflection of Americana, magnified, yes, within hip hop. What happens oftentimes is that then this youth culture, folks grow up, and whenever they grow up, wisdom ensues. When they grow up, they realize, oh my God, that was dumb. How could I say that? That's problematic. There are artists that I've talked to, like, I can't believe I said that back then. They cringe at their own lyrics when they got older, but by the time they get it, they unaged, quote unquote, aged out. And now you have young folks who are replicating the same mistakes their elders did, because we made hip hop be youth culture and we've allowed the elders to be disposable so they can't correct the young folks to be better. And listen, any culture that renders the elders disposable is destined to repeat the mistakes of the elders and wallow in the worst of itself. So now you got these youth raising youth, making mistakes, replicating Americana, and the old folks done aged out. They don't want to be OGs. They let the culture go. And so then we have the misogyny from 1980 being replicated in 2020. And so the first step is to bring the elders back to the culture, to show the young folks, I was an idiot like you were, but here's how to be better with love. You know what I mean? The second piece is to recognize that, yo, I can love hip hop and critique it. Common once said, if I don't like it, I don't like it. It don't mean that I'm hating. And I think we've all gotten to the point where it's like, if I say out loud, I don't like that, then it means I'm not down with the culture. Nope, I'm as hip hop as it gets. And the baby is problematic. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta reclaim your relationship to the culture so that you can critique the culture so we can all collectively get better. And so I think it's bringing the elders back who've learned the lessons to return back. I think it's the young folks within the culture being able to expand out to be able to critique the culture while we're in it, but critique with love. Because, you know, I don't want to, because we got two brilliant sisters here and I don't want to take up too much space, but, you know, also we got to critique, not critique to cancel. America taught us to critique and cancel. America taught us that you don't like it, it's the end. Your career is over. I'll never like you anymore. You're problematic. Nah, when you critique with love, you say, that was problematic. That was wrong. I'm not going to support you going further. I'm going to love you and infuse with you a love to help you understand why it was problematic so that then I can recruit you to the right side of history. But when you critique to cancel, we can't grow. So I would think it's those three things. Bring the elders who know better back. Have folks who are in the culture, who love the culture, be upfront and bold in critiquing. And when we critique hard and harsh, but with love, to give folks the redemptive opportunities to reimagine the culture going forward.
Whew. Reimagine the culture going forward. Yes. You know, I guess to kind of keep going down this pathway of thinking, you know, connecting back to this idea of why the organization was founded, and this you know, thinking about those who have been harmed. Veronica, and I'm going to take this question to you, but what does it mean to show up for those who are at the most potential of negative influences in our society, those who have been most harmed? What does that mean to show up for those, for, you know, students, seniors, those who may not be neurotypical?
I think I raised Michaela with the concept of leading by example. So I try to, if I'm gonna preach to someone, I always say the children are watching, children listen. So I always try to, I'm not gonna tell you to do something and not live that life. Also with seniors, I grew up with the matriarchs of my family. I was very close to my grandmother. I was very close to my mother and my aunts. So just engaging them in conversation, including them in our lives, and you know, having them engage in what's going on nowadays. I think it's important to not only talk, but to live the life and lead by example.
Oof. Yeah, I love that. That's so I drop something in the chat that reminds me of. It's like there's a saying in education: the game is to be caught, not to be.
Oh man, I think the good doctor done froze up on us. No, we
Oh,
got him
sorry about
back.
that. I'm
We got him
back. But yeah, I dropped in the chat: the game is to be caught, not to be taught. It's like, you know, you think you're gonna come in and like teach these kids something by drawing on the whiteboard, and honestly, they're looking at everything you do from the minute you walk into that space. Actually, they're looking at everything from the minute they walk into the building. You know, they're catching the game. You know, you ain't teaching them to. But I was curious if anyone else had anything to add to that question around what does it mean to show up, like showing up for those who are asking for it, or those who need it.
I want to pass that to Michaela, because you know, I'm always working on trying not to take up too much space. You know what I mean? Because my personality is like, you know, heavy. So I'm gonna let Michaela rock out on that one first.
No worries, Dr. Emdin. I've been absorbing everything, but I think just thinking about the question, I think especially for, so I think just taking a step back, so just thinking about seniors, which my mother talked about seniors, thinking about people of color, specifically Black people, specifically Black women, and then on top of that, thinking about people that aren't, or people that are neurodivergent. And I think that in thinking about these communities, we also have to realize that there's a lot of overlap. So I think especially within the Black community, there are a lot of us that are neurodivergent. There are a lot of people that are seniors and neurodivergent and may not even understand it because of things in the past that it may have been cliche, or it may have not been, it may have been very hush hush to even talk about that. But now we're at the point where people are like willing to openly discuss things that they're facing. But I think it's all about representation and just showing up as you are. I think with Chiefing, we try to be the most authentic versions of ourselves, as my mother like always taught me. Somebody is always watching. I know, like, I take a lot of mentorship and I take a lot of inspiration from people that remind me of the person that I needed when I was growing up. Even though, like, my mother is an excellent human being, but I think just like the complexities of humans. As a young girl that loves hip hop, that hears misogynistic stuff all day, but I love Jay-Z's whole catalog. But I can say that Reasonable Doubt had a lot of misogynistic stuff, but I can appreciate that. And as Dr. Emdin said, critique that. Just like representing who you are in your fullest self, because there's always somebody that like wants to, that is looking for you. So I think for Sheeping, that's what we try to do. That's what we try to be. Always knowing that there's such a diverse set of people, even within our pool, that we reach every single day. And just taking into account that there's so many individuals and identities.
You know, to know oneself and show up as oneself is the ultimate freedom. you know, even in circumstances where folks try to pigeonhole you or construct boundaries to your full expression, when you know who you are, what you are, and I'm gonna go somewhere that, you know, some folks don't always like where I go, but when you know who you are and whose you are, right? When I say whose, is the ancestry and lineage that brings you to where you are. It's also the divine being that has constructed you and placed you in this space and time in this moment. Like, you know, a lot of us, you know, we follow these people's norms, and they norms ain't designed for us. Like literally, like real talk, like talk about schooling and education. Like the schools were not designed for Black and brown bodies to be successful. Think about corporations and record labels. They were not constructed for Black and brown creatives to be able to be successful. You think about arts institutions. They were not constructed to give voice to the expressions of Black and brown forms of expression. Like, we got to first of all understand that the general infrastructure that is being used to judge us was not designed to see all of us. Once you know that first, then you're like, yo, if it wasn't designed for me, why do I judge myself based on that institution's perceptions of normal? I can't. Like, and once that recognition opens up, then it's like, well, then if I don't got to judge myself based on who they expect, then what do I judge myself on? I judge myself on who I am and whose I am. When you show up with that understanding, that almost like compels you to operate authentically. And authentically is without perception, without vision, without projection of somebody else's who you are. So without projections or perceptions of my sexuality, without projections or perceptions about my Blackness, without projections or perceptions about my normalcy, without projections or perceptions of my appropriateness, I'm just me, damn it. And when you show up that way and you're unapologetic about that, you give young folks the license to do the same. And once that happens, the world opens up. You know what I mean? And I think that's the difference. Like, so back to our main theme, right? Around women, particularly women of color who've been harmed, broken, hurt, oftentimes, most times at the hands of Black men. Let's just be clear, right? If you decode Black men who enact those forms of violence on Black women in those problematic ways, you realize that all they are is what they've been taught. All they are is what folks have told them is normal. All they are is what society has said. You're Black, you're angry, you're mean, and express it. Boom. Then your grandfather said, that's not how you treat a woman. You got to be this. Boom. You're decoding who you're supposed to be based on perceptions that somebody else projected onto you. At one point, do you say, I will take off the mask and the clothes of my oppressors, even those that look like me, and I'm going to lean into being my authentic self? And that authentic self oftentimes is who we all created to be. Loving, divine, beautiful, magic humans. But you got to take off the projections first, because sometimes that will hide you from being able to be yourself. Like, can I just keep it a buck? I remember, I tell my students this story. Durell might have heard it once or twice. I remember growing up in the 90s in Brooklyn, going to the bashment, them in the basements with the red lights and all that. And I remember, like, the joint was Buju. And the song was Boom Bye Bye. Like, when Boom Bye Bye dropped in the basement bashment with the red light, it was on, right? And I'd be up there, you know what I mean, winding up and grinding up or whatever. And I'm singing the lyrics, and the lyrics are literally murder of human beings. And I didn't even process that I was articulating a version and vision of Blackness that was about homophobia and murder. Out loud, that was my joint. And I had to then at some point in my life say, yo, do I stand for that? Is that what I rep? Is that who I am? And at the time, I had put on these projections, like, I gotta be angry Black, hate gays, hate homo, like all those things. And that wasn't me. Freedom is when you're no longer bound by the projections of your oppressor, those who look like you and those who don't. And we have to teach young folks to operate in the pursuit of freedom.
Okay, good.
Yes, yes.
Got distracted.
Yes. You know, thinking about what you're just saying, Dr. E, I'm thinking about, you know, the unlearning process and the unlearning that sometimes has to happen, and just how deep some of this goes. You know, like it's like, you know, in the years that we've had here on the earth, we can think about the traumatic experiences that we can remember, right? But what about if we go back before that and thinking about intergenerational trauma? We are literally we are birthed into this world with this trauma and this pain encoded into the DNA of who we are. We got it from our mamas who got it from their mamas and their daddies all the way back. And we are here in this moment. And this is why I love what Veronica and Michaela are doing with She Thing, because this is our cross to bear in this moment to heal, right? This is literally our birthright. And Veronica and Michaela are really putting a lot of energy in their organization to highlight this need to heal, because it is work. Dr. E, I want to stay with you, if that's okay, for this
If
next.
it's okay with my sisters, it's fine with me.
Okay.
Totally fine.
I want to stay with you on this next one. So we're talking about the work, and and the struggle that it really can be to try to do this work, this freedom work, this revolutionary work in these spaces to try to heal individually and then also collectively. What would you recommend as a first step to someone who's trying to close like the gaps within, say, education or within society, around some of these issues, without any help from their peers, without any help from administrators, without any help from coworkers, executives, and how do you start to do this revolutionary work when you feel like you're on an island to yourself? And if I could just plug Ratchetdemic real quick, I know a lot of that has to do with looking at the individuality of it all, but yes, I would love to pick your brain on that for a little bit here.
Well, there's a couple things, fam. Like the most important work anybody can do is self-work. The most laborious, hard work that I've had to do in my life it had nothing to do with nobody else. I think we oftentimes we get seduced by this narrative that it requires, you to be able to reach out to everybody in the world and read all the books in order for you to be able to heal. And reality is no. I think the first step before you start doing all that stuff is just like, who am I? Whose am I? What do I stand for? What do I believe in? Who do I want to be? How do I want to grow? Who do I look to? What do I meditate on? What do I intake? What do I give out? Like the first step is just, and sometimes you got to cut off from everybody. I've had these moments where I have to cut off from people I love for the sake of like grounding and centering myself. And then when you have done that work of self and who you want to be, then you can start consuming text and start reading. But before you read, know yourself. Because where we are right now in society, this is where we are. Everybody's like, oh, woke. Everybody's woke. Give me all the things to read. I want to be woke too. Culturally relevant, anti-racist. Like, and then it's like, so then people know all the intellectual work, but they practice is flawed. They talking all that game, but their heart is broken. And not, when I say heart is broken, I mean in both senses, meaning like the heart, meaning the soul is broken. You can't give anything else, but your heart is broken because you don't even know what love is. And you can't even get towards being anti-racist so you understand what love is. How do I love myself and who I stand for? Everybody rushes to the outcome. Nobody want to do the self-work. The example I always give is that, Stevie Wonder is my favorite musician. I love hip hop, but Stevie. And my favorite album is Songs in the Key of Life. You know what I mean? Double album. Loves Anita, Love Today, Ribbon in the Sky. Like all your joints is on that album, bro. If you don't know that album, I feel bad for you, son. You got 99 Problems and Good Music Is One. Like that album is everything. And why I love that album is because I also understand that Songs in the Key of Life, as brilliant and beautiful and magical and loved as it was, that album came after the Inner Visions album. If you're a Stevie fan, you know this. Inner Visions album was shorter than Songs in the Key of Life, but it was more deep. Like he was literally was Inner Vision. Like it was just reflections. He had Pastime Paradise, I think was on that joint, like a lot of really deep introspective stuff. And I always tell folks, everybody wants to live in the key of life. Nobody wants to do the inner visions. You know what I mean? Everybody loves they want the double album with all the features that everybody loves. I want to be anti-racist and culturally relevant and all the stuff, and you know, and abolitionist and reality pedagogy and all that. But you can't get to be in the key of life unless you first do the inner visions. And the Inner Visions Word album, the critics hated it. It was a deep album. It was not for everybody else to listen to. Stevie did that album for Stevie. But once he worked through all that stuff, then he could get to the songs in the key of life. And so I always tell folks, before you, don't jump to the keys of life so you do the inner visions. Cut everybody off. Spend a week by yourself. Talking to yourself and talking to the divine. You know what I mean? Situating self and recalibrating your psyche. You know what I mean? And then once you do that, then you can go consume. Because then once you do that, I'm sorry, y'all, I got me too hyped today. I'll be quiet, I promise. Once you do that stuff, then not only is it easy to make songs in the key of life, but you start making sense of the trash that's out there and folks who are trying to game you. A lot of cats out here trying to game you. Everybody woke just because it's trendy, not because they believe it. That's the part that I've been dealing with right now. How do I just stay low and keep firing, in the words of Biggie? Because, man, the language right now, I'll say this, and I'm not trying to shade nobody. Like, I don't believe in the language of co-conspirator when it relates to the humanity of Black people. I'm sorry, right? And I'm like, Dr. E, why are you, like, it's not critiquing to, like, I'm not hating on nobody, but I'm saying my humanity is not a conspiracy. It's not an underhanded thing to fight for at the detriment of others. That's not, my humanity is a given. Don't co-conspire for my humanity. Allow my humanity to exist. And there's something about the language of darkness that's associated with advocating for your light that I can't stand for. And it's like, but I need to know where I'm situated first for me to be able to say, that's why somehow that don't resonate with me. I don't know why. I hear it all the time. It's on trend. Everybody's saying it, but and like, if I don't like it, I don't like it. It don't mean that I'm hating. It just don't speak to my soul. But you can't know what speaks to your soul until you spent the time knowing your soul. Inner visions before songs in the key of life.
Durell, if you don't mind, I wanted to chime in, and the success that we've had with Sheathing is because we meet people where they are. And I'm working on programming for September. As you know, we're about to open a transitional home, but also additional programming. And part of the requirement is any volunteer, any intern, anyone who works with us, they have to take a trauma-informed course just to work with any client that we have, because we have to meet people where they are. And that's what we've been doing, working with people individually and working with them to develop their paths. So I think that's how we've really been successful.
Thank you so much for sharing that, V. Michaela, I want to come to you on this next question, especially because it has a lot to do with what Robin Kelly calls freedom dreaming and thinking about the future generations. What would you think future generations who are hopefully living in a more liberated America, but hopefully a more liberated world in general, thinking of global citizenship because we are the global majority. What do you think future generations would say about the work of Sheathing NYC, and even more specifically, maybe the panel that we're having today and the work that the organization is doing?
I think, and that's a great question. I think the first thing that came to my mind was the representation, just going back to like the fact that I think versus a lot of, I guess just to take a step back and thinking about a lot of organizations that have very similar goals, I think the faces are very different than the faces that we try to reach at Sheathing. And I think on the other hand, like as somebody in the audience, I'm not thinking of Sheathing as like a co-founder or somebody that's on the team, but thinking as somebody that may be in need of our services. It's like so delightful, and it's just so like a breath of fresh air to see somebody that looks like you, that understands that there is a whole different set of trauma, there's a whole different set of struggles, everything that you didn't necessarily put yourself into, but it's due to history, it's due to where you're located when you're born, a lot of external factors that have absolutely nothing to do with anything you've ever done in your life. But have open arms and be able to provide you with resources. I think like at Sheeping, that's the number one thing that we do. And I think especially thinking about new generations, I'm 25, I'm in like the millennial slash maybe early Gen Z set. And it's been it's been very funny to see just how outspoken Gen Z is and how like in tune with everything that Gen Z is. So it makes me very optimistic as a younger person that's not necessarily as young as like TikTok young, but young enough to see that there's so many people in all over the world within the younger generations that, are really fighting for that representation, that are fighting for the resources to be shared like throughout, like for everybody. It's not, I don't know why, but for some reason the tagline "It's how far" just popped up in my head. It's not for you, it's for everyone. And I think like with Chiefing, like that's kind of what we do. It's not for one person, it's for everyone. So yeah, I think the younger generation has it, and we always try to appeal to the younger generation. We don't try to make things seem so dated. We don't make it seem generational. It's not for you, it's for everyone.
Oof, I love that. That actually ties very well because, Dr. E, I want to go back to you. I think that ties in very well, honestly, with your new book, Ratchetdemic. Would you mind sort of explaining the concept of ratchetdemicology and a little bit about your new book?
Yeah, man. And I want to say how much I love what Michaela said about, I ain't the TikTok kids, but I ain't the other kids either. You know what I mean? I'm sitting here in the mix, I'm melding it all together because I think that concept really speaks to Ratchetdemic, right? Ratchetdemic is a philosophy, a theory, and a practice that is about existing where our multiple worlds collide and doing so unapologetically. So, in the world, usually, people are either ratchet or they're academic. At least that's how they're perceived. So if you're ratchet, you're loud, you're a little extra, you might throw the hat on to the Zoom meeting, you know what I mean? Like, your ratchetness is usually associated with being really low brow and low culture. And it's particularly, interestingly, ratchet is also a word that's been utilized as a weapon to assault Black women in particular, right? Like she ratchet. Like if you see them videos on YouTube, where these cats, dress up as Black women, these Black dudes dress up as Black women, and then assault themselves as Black women so that they can take off that Black woman pretentiousness and then step out of it later, right? So ratchetness has been used to assault Black folks writ large, but Black women in particular. And then being academic, you're supposed to be buttoned up and smart and articulate and raise your hands and know all the words and read all the books. And it's been presented as opposites. And my argument is, why can't we all be ratchetdemic? Where you're equal parts ratchet and academic, where you're equal parts hood and astute, you know what I mean? And that the freedom for Black folks includes us being able to wear our ratchet and academic selves at the same time. And it's also playing on, y'all know I'm a New York cat, you know what I mean? Like, when Jay was like, back when ratchet was a ratchet, those of us who like 90s, 80s a little bit, our ratchet is not that. The ratchet was the weapon. You know what I mean? So like, if you pulled up somewhere and it was like, yo, you better stop tripping, I got the ratchet on me, that means I got this secret weapon I might pull out and it's a problem, right? And so I merged a Jay-Z-esque New York 90s notion of ratchet as a secret weapon with a New Orleans Lil Boozy-esque notion of ratchet as an expression, and said that the expressions of Blackness are the secret weapon. I don't know if y'all following where I'm going right now. So I'm bringing the South and the East together to say that my ratchet expression is my secret weapon that, when unleashed, makes everyone around me in white supremacist spaces fear me, because that's what allows me to be able to move freely. And so to be ratchetdemic is to utilize the secret weapon that is the forms of expression of Black folks usually relegated as outside of the norm and problematic as the badge of honor as we navigate white academic spaces and say, we are here. And not only are we here, but we're here to take it over. And so ratchetdemic is a theorizing and all that. And I talk about how schools need to be more ratchetdemic. Teachers need to be more ratchetdemic. Black folks need to be more ratchetdemic. White folks need to go find their ratchet. Not my ratchet. Go find your ratchet. Don't try to be like me. Go find your ratchet because y'all ratchet. Y'all think y'all academic, but y'all ratchet. Embrace your ratchet as well in the movement towards our collective freedom.
Whew. So I'm going to open it up to questions here in a couple of minutes. But I was curious, Veronica, if there were any additional thoughts or that you would like to share with the people that we have here today.
Dr. Emdin, I'm so glad you brought up the fact that, we've put ourselves out there, and a lot of times, like this morning, I think we had like 5 people join us. We had a whole day of activities. And if we had advertised maybe like a party or something like that, it would have been full. But so it's just like we're putting ourselves out there. I'm just wondering, how can we reach more? How can we reach a broader audience, and especially those who need to hear what we have to say? I was a little disappointed at first, but then
well, I'm gonna say this, and we're gonna talk to each other like we family, right? Even though we got other folks in the room. Never be disappointed. One of my favorite experiences ever was Jay Electronica. I love Jay Electronica. He's one of my favorite rappers. And I remember he had just dropped Exhibit C. The whole country was buzzing. The energy was crazy. He had just blazed, like it was everything. Like, look at Michaela. When I said Exhibit C, she knows what I'm saying, right? And so it was all hype. And then he had this interview and they were like, yo, Jay Electronica, when the album dropping? And he said, my train is running on schedule. Nobody got, they were like, what? We asked when the album about to drop. You gonna talk about your train running on schedule? Like people didn't, and here's what I'm gonna say to you, to both Michaela and Veronica, your train is running on schedule, right? Your season is yet to come. Do not be disappointed by I always tell folks, bring the folks in so we get the numbers, but the movement is moving where it's supposed to go. And I'm gonna say this out loud, because the way I move, the divine speaks for me. So I never worried about what I have to say, because if I prayed beforehand, and I know I'm saying what I need to be said. We're gonna do a hip hop ed X she thing. That's the next wave, right? We've got a brand through hip hop ed that's been able to sort of get attention and look at the intersections of hip hop and education. And we have our Twitter chat, and we have a nice little community. And we're gonna do a hip hop ed X she thing, because that's how the new kids do it. They put the X on it, then it's a thing. You know what I mean? So we're gonna do a hip hop ed X she thing. As an arm of hip hop ed, not in a way to adopt what you're doing, because you're your own entity and you do your own thing, but to allow us to be able to utilize the platform of hip hop ed to elevate the kind of dialogue, the movement. I mean, you building a home for folks. Like, it's incredible to me. You know what I mean? And the way you're saying it, so I'll say this out loud. I ain't even ask for your approval, but we're gonna do a hip hop ed XG thing, like publicity movement, because our train is running on schedule. And sometimes it comes together in these moments so that the next iteration can be better and bigger. So don't never be disappointed about your calling. Your train is running on schedule. And maybe we need to have this meeting right now where we're all on, you know what I mean? We got what, 16 folks. Y'all gonna be part of the witness to the first step of the hip hop ed XG thing on transformation, to bring the world along on this journey. Because if it comes from your heart and your soul, it's blessed. So, our train is running on schedule.
Thank you. And I want to shout Summer McCoy out. She's on with us.
That's my fam. Summer is so dope and so brilliant, in the Mixtape Museum. And, she did, thing about Summer is Summer knows she dope. So you ain't got to tell us, you already know what it is.
This was amazing. Y'all, you already know you can use me for whatever. Keep moving.
Summer, you should drop your at so we can follow.
I got you.
So I'm curious, if we have a little under 10 minutes, I'm curious if anybody in the audience, if there are any questions for any of the panelists or for me. It can also be comments. It doesn't have to be a question.
I wanted to also, I don't know if y'all realize this, but that's not just Durell Cooper. who's been leading us, y'all. Y'all see the whole doctor before his name. This is Dr. Durell Cooper, who graduated actually this year with his doctorate from NYU. I had the blessing to sit in the room while he gave this masterful dissertation defense. I was blessed to be in his community. And I think, the important for us to also celebrate each other. Shout out to Dr. Cooper. First, because he's smooth as hell. Two, because he got a whole doctor before his name right now. You got to move different when you put a doctor behind your name. So I want to say publicly too, again, every time I see you, I'm gonna do this. So just be ready. Congratulations, fam. I'm so proud of you. So proud of you.
Well, I'm very proud to call myself one of your former students. It was a long shot, but you took me in anyway. And then to have you on my dissertation committee was, come on, that you talking about like a 0.00 point something percentage. So, I'm very thankful. So thank you.
Well, my name is Jackie, and I wanted to just comment. Early on in the conversation, we talked about love, and love is very important. It's just needed everywhere. It's needed everywhere, and especially in the discipline or the collaboration to hear other people's ideas. And, it's very important to meet people at the level of their reality. I spent about 20 years working for the United Negro College Fund. And my CEO would always talk about the organization as a place that the Black colleges meet students at the level of their reality, and I have 1,000 stories about that. But I think what we're looking at now in terms of having love and having a lot of people don't know what they don't know. So it's a situation of gently as possible and in a loving way to collaborate and incorporate, all kinds of people, wherever they are, whatever their ages are, not to isolate anybody. Michaela will have an opinion. You'll have an opinion. I'll have an opinion. As a older, seasoned person, to try to just uplift our people. Like I said, the biggest thing for me sometimes is recognizing that I'm a lifelong learner. I want to learn. And I just want to put a pin in that to say, Dr. Emdin, that I would attend New York City public school, not a teacher, but just a person concerned about education, seminars. And I saw you many, many years ago. I have your paperback books from, I don't know if you remember speaking at the National History Museum. And I was just on fire with you at that time. And have been watching you, came to see Schaumburg when you had your book signing, that type of thing. And Veronica knows when she texted me, I was like, oh my God. Because last week I just dipped into your live and I was like, preach. I'm like, oh my God. It always comes up, but for whatever reason, I decided to join into that and then to connect here to just say, thank you for what you do. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, Michaela. Veronica knows how we met and how I kind of adopted. When I talk to Veronica, I say, how is our daughter? And, and I'm just thrilled. I'm just totally thrilled. And everybody does not have a mother like Veronica. So to lead by example, some of the examples that people see are causing some of the friction of not friction, but some of where we are today. So I think that leading with love, recognizing it's important to meet people at the level of their reality. And I'll be guilty to say sometimes I feel like I'm looking at somebody like, you should know this, But as I'm growing, as I'm learning about the history of our people and the resiliency. I mean, I be honest with you, I only learned the resiliency of a certain amount of people, like, you know, not a certain amount, a certain, what they wanted me to know. So here I am, I'm like this year old, as they say, finding out different things about our culture, about where we come from. I mean, I knew it, but this wokeness now that people have, even if it's just what do you call it? The in thing to have, I think it will have some impact. I think it will have impact if people really want to go deep into it and recognize, yeah, well, I come from that and I can do that, you know, or, you know, for me, like, I'm a fundraiser and for education. Like, if someone calls me and asks me about, you know, being a fundraiser for ASPCA, nah, you know, I know myself, I know who I am, I know what's important to me. So no, I'm not doing that. What I want to do is use asset-based language. You know, all these times we walk around saying underserved. Well, we're historically left out. So is that kind of situation where, you know, within our own families, within, you know, just knowing where we came from, knowing our histories, whether we came from Barbados, whether we came from, knowing the lineages of how we got where we are, you know, is really important. And I think it really all starts with love, and it starts with loving yourself. And a lot of times people don't even realize that they're living somebody else's situation, because it's been put out there that this is what, you know, we are or we should be. And I like the, you know, I got your first book. I just recognized about the second one, so I know what it means. And I kind of look at that as boardroom and barbershop. That's my ratchet academia, you know, like being able to, like, yeah, I could hang here, I could hang there, you know. So that kind of thing, you know, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to, you know, young people that I meet, young people that I just, you know, come in contact with, because I'm old enough to have been through various, you know, stages. So, and my mother always says there's nothing new under the sun. And I believe that. It's nothing new under the sun. You know, it's just a situation on how do we get people to recognize what their authentic self actually is? Because we're living, a lot of people, even adults, are living someone else's dream for them. So my question, I guess, is how do you, you know, how do you introduce the finding out about yourself and your authenticity within yourself, which will catapult you to being open to living in that, to walking in that? You know, God says you're wonderfully and cheerfully made. Okay, so I'm marvelous. The Creator created me, and He's a creator. So how do I co-create with Him? What did He put down in me? Like you said, the divinity that's within inside of you. How do you bring that out?
Can I chime in? I think I'm in a coffee shop, so I'm trying not to be rude. But I think an important part of the conversation, which Chris touched on and you touched on, Jackie, also, is legacy. And realizing that, you know, we're teaching young people, but young people are also teaching us. And then also, of course, like the she thing is Willie Mae Loomis, right? Like, this is Veronica's mom and Michaela's grandmother, and her legacy it's here, you know? So it's important to teach legacy and history, which is why we need to archive hip hop and bring the hip hop OGs into the classroom. Jonathan, I don't know if he's still here, but bringing our daughters into the conversation, you know. And I spent the holiday, I don't even know what year it is because of COVID, but last Christmas in South Carolina with my mom and my daughter. And I archive hip hop. That's what I do through mixtapes. But I spent December going through my family's pictures and documents and music collections and learning about my great grandmother, and my Nana Ruth and Nana Dot through their homes, like what's left, you know? So a lot of the work that I do is also teaching students how to use spreadsheets, right? How to use databases, how we can actually archive family documents, pictures, all of that, right? I'm going through my father's Latin Quarter vinyl collection from when he worked at the Latin Quarters. I'm learning about my dad in that time that I don't remember. Like I spent many a days on the stage at the Latin Quarters with my dad, and it came back to me during quarantine. Like Chris said, I spent mad time alone during quarantine. So I had a lot of time to reflect and also learn about my family. So I think a big part of it is legacy. Sankofa, right? Like we've got to teach the history so that we can move forward. Yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Well,
Can I tell y'all something was dope? Goodness gracious. God.
well, I would not be a good moderator if I didn't mention that we are officially like 3 minutes over time. But before, I know some people probably have to run, so before everyone signs off, I just want to send a huge thank you to Veronica, to Michaela, and to Dr. Emdin. Thank you all so much for sharing your time, your wisdom, and your light with all of us here today. And thank you all to all the participants who also showed up and who were engaged and contributed as well. You know, we if you want to go far, go alone. But if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So thank you for all being together today.
And Sister Jackie, I just want to say thank you for the love and showing up to them events. And I think you answered your own question. It's not making love a perverse thing, that you live love, right? And when you love your legacy, like Sister Summer said, you dig in, you study it like you study a textbook. You study you sit with it like you sit with a sitcom. I don't gotta spend 3 hours on Real Housewives or whatever. I want to spend on 3 hours on 3 lifestyles of my mama and my mama's mama, and you understand those legacies and those truths, and all the beauty gets revealed. And I think it's loving us, and that's the answer to everything, is loving us. And it's so funny, my babies don't come to every Zoom. But you started talking and they all showed up. But this is what it's about, right? They are my legacy, but dare I say they are yours. The words you share report to me, but through them. And it's about all of us in unison, knowing that we can be better and that we can love ourselves up to where we need to go. So, shout to She Thing. I love y'all. I can't wait to collab with y'all. And shout to everybody who came in just to hear us just to share today. I appreciate you all.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't even know what this means to me. It's just the perfect way to end our virtual day. We have one more conversation with teens, but I know to many of you, Dr. Durell is referred to as Dr. Durell Cooper, and Chris as Dr. Chris Emdin, but they're my brothers. So I appreciate both of you. I appreciate all of you for taking the time to join us today. It means so much to us. And the movement moves on. We have a lot of work to do. So thank you all.
Thank you.
The train is on schedule, Veronica. The train is on schedule.
The train is on schedule.
Okay. Have a good weekend, everyone.
You too.